Before we get started, I have an exciting announcement. We are launching a line of Head South pleasure provisions, products designed to decrease friction and enhance connection. Discover a new level of intimacy and connection with Head South's upcoming range of premium sexual wellness products, including 2 intimacy serums and a luxurious massage oil. Join our waitlist today and enjoy an exclusive 15% off on your first order. You can find the link in our show notes and head over to headsouth.world. And now let's start the episode.
You're listening to Head South Radio with your host, Kat Meyer, a podcast dedicated to prioritizing pleasure and removing the stigma and shame around sex. We're here to be curious and have an open conversation about sexual health and relational wellness. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. The information discussed is not a substitute for professional medical advice.
Hey there, I'm your host, Kat Meyer, and on today's episode of Head South Radio, we have Dirty Lola, a celebrated sex educator, captivating speaker, and proudly self-proclaimed purveyor of pleasure devices. With an impressive array of accomplishments under her belt, she is a prominent figure in the realm of sexual education. Dirty Lola is renowned for her dynamic live sex education presentations as well as her engaging Q&A show, Sex Ed A Go-Go. You might also recognize her as a sex expert from her appearances on the Netflix documentary series, The Principles of Pleasure. For over a decade, Lola has passionately dedicated herself to eradicating the stigma and shame that often shroud discussions about sex and sexuality. Her personal journey began by sharing her revelations about polyamory and kink on Twitter, but Lola also has since expanded her horizons. Beyond her educational endeavors, Lola also serves as creative director of the Spectrum Journal, an online publication affiliated with the female-owned online sex shop Spectrum Boutique. She contributes her expertise to the advisory board of the Youth Sexpert program, a testament to her commitment to fostering sexual education among the younger generation. Please take a moment to like and review our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Lola. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to interview you because we had met at SHAG months ago. It was probably the end of May, the beginning of summer.
Yes.
And a friend of mine and I were in SHAG speaking to the woman behind the counter. And I was explaining that I have a podcast where I interview different experts. And you walked in the door right in that very moment. And the person behind the counter was like, "You need to speak to Lola." So I was very grateful in that moment, and I was able to get your contact information and find you and DM you and make this all happen. And so I'm very appreciative of timing.
Yeah.
In the universe. It definitely worked out. And so we're going to get started with some icebreakers, some would you rathers.
Okay.
Would you rather have the best sex of your life once or mediocre sex every day?
Best sex of my life once.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, all right. Would you rather shop for sex toys or lingerie?
Sex toys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I knew that one. Would you rather use a shower head or an electric toothbrush as a makeshift sex toy?
Shower head.
Shower head. MacGyver it with a shower head. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather tie someone up or be tied up?
Ooh, be tied up.
Would you rather have sex to the same song every day or never have sex with music on?
Never have sex with music on.
Would you rather use a dildo or a vibrator?
Vibrator.
Would you rather never have oral sex again or never have penetrative sex again?
Never have oral sex again.
And so that concludes our little icebreaker warm-up.
That was easy.
So that was an easy one, yeah. If you wouldn't mind, Lola, just give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what sex education was like for you.
So I am a sex educator based in Brooklyn, but originally I'm from South Carolina. I grew up there and lived there until I was 13, and I moved to New York, and I've been here ever since. Coming up on it's almost my 30th New York anniversary.
Wow.
And I have been doing sex ed in some capacity or working in the sex ed pleasure product industry for almost 13 years now. I started out just kind of sharing my life as I was exploring kink and polyamory in my like early 30s and rediscovering who I was, as an adult, because I met my now ex-husband when I was 19. And you grow up in things, and then you find yourself like, oh, I missed out on a whole formative time. So that really began everything on Twitter, sharing that stuff. And I had a blog, and then that moved into me checking out conferences and finding the sex positive community and then wanting to do more. And so I am self-taught because I have always just devoured anything about sex, love, relationships since I was a kid. That was part of my, I have some abuse stuff in my background, and my hypersexuality was like a knowledge grab of trying to figure things out because nobody was talking to me as a kid about that stuff. So I wanted to somehow be a part of the community in a deeper way. And at the time, I did not at all consider myself to be a sex educator. And it wasn't even a thing that I was thinking of necessarily. And I started my show, Sex at a Go-Go, which was a way for me to kind of be that sex friend to random strangers who wanted to ask questions that I had answers to, but also to introduce people to these amazing folks I was meeting at these conferences that nobody knew. And I'm like, why don't you know who these people are? And also I was hosting burlesque at the time. So like to combine that with the amazing people I was meeting in burlesque and making them a part of the show and kind of turning everything on its head. And that really was the beginning of everything. And then I started working at Shag. I've been at Shag for 10 years now. I know. And that's where I started teaching because we do workshops and things of that nature. So I started teaching at Shag, speaking at conferences, doing the show, and everything's just kind of snowballed from there to me being on Netflix as part of the Principles of Pleasure. And I'm on HBO right now too on The Sex Diaries. So it's been a very weird journey that's hard. It's like, I know how I got there, but it's so hard to explain because it's not the normal stair steps to becoming anything.
Yeah. I love that though. I mean, in a lot of ways, more creative people have more of an expansive, circular way of getting to the place that they need to be versus like a linear this, step,
Yeah.
process.
Now you can go to school to be a sex educator. 13 years ago, there was nothing. There was no courses. There weren't certification. Like there wasn't even college courses for it. And now colleges have sex educator tracks, and it's changed a lot in the last like decade or so.
Yeah, I think when we first spoke on our pre-podcast meeting, we're around the same time period of high school and sex education. And to think back to that, like that's where sex education starts. And it's often with like a phys ed teacher. So it's not actually anyone who has studied anything about pleasure, relational wellness, anything to do with actually having sex. It's more about the mechanics and preventative education. And so I remember you saying though, because your background is you grew up in the South, but then you moved to, I think it was Long Island City or New York.
Yeah.
And it was like a big change to be exposed in your high school because there was much more progressive sex education. Do you mind speaking about that and your experience through like your teenhood?
Yeah, my teenhood. So our high school was a brand new build when I started there. I think it had only been open for like a year, and because it was replacing an old high school, they went all out with trying to like make it more part of the community, but also like what do people need. So we had a daycare for teen moms to allow them to continue going to school. Our nurse's office was associated with a hospital, so we had actual nurses who could dispense birth control. We had condoms and dental dams and gloves. We had all of that in school that you could just go into the nurse's office and get those things. We had a big LGBTQ contingent. We always joke that LIC stands for Lost in the Closet because so many of the people in our graduating class came out. Like there was a big group of us during school, but after, so many people came out, and it was just like, huh. So we always had that kind of environment. And our sex ed, I mean, I think we got like a touch more than what other people get. We got ours in health class. They did talk to us about condom use and things of that nature because we had the nurse come in and they were able to talk about it. And I think it came from that kind of the loophole of what we get to talk about a teacher teaching you versus like a medical professional coming in. But they were really open. We still got the whole like the safest way to not get anything is to not have sex, the safest way not to get pregnant, which is all true. And we still didn't get a ton of pleasure focus, but at least it wasn't all like, we're not going to give you any way to protect yourself and we're going to, just act like you're not doing anything. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that we were queer kids and queer folks are still seen as promiscuous and needing to be protected from themselves and their, promiscuous behavior, and they're not doing what they need to do. So we were being handed condoms and lube and dental dams because they're like, here. Because, the AIDS crisis, which I grew up in the 80s. My uncle passed away of AIDS in his late 30s, early 40s. And, so it was very much a part of like my thinking. And I still think as an adult now, it's so funny to me because we are one of the safest communities, a lot of alternative communities, because we do take more care in what we do. And even then, none of us were having sex. Like we were just gay in theory. It was like gay in the heart, but not a lot of us weren't having sex, but we were just walking around with all the safer sex supplies and knew how to use it. So we walked away with a lot more knowledge than I think most kids did. We did have sex parties. I call them sex parties because they were sexual, but we weren't, I think there was like one couple who had actual penetrative sex. But we did a lot of like watching dirty movies. We watched a lot of Angelina Jolie's like Gia and Original Sin, those kind of movies, and porn together. And we'd hang out and like somebody would start making out and somebody was like, can I suck your toes? And, it was like weird but fun testing of the waters. And it would devolve into people groping and making out and kissing. And it was kind of innocent. Now that I think about it, it was like sweet times.
Yeah.
And I've learned since that most people didn't have that high school experience. So yeah, I left high school feeling very prepared for the life that I lead now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. That's a very rare experience. And I think it does sound very innocent of like watching Angelina Jolie films with your friends and then like kind of making out and exploring with each other. Pleasure versus like people getting super drunk and experiencing sex and not having the tools or the resources to experience that. Like I think it's really, really sweet and like beautiful to be like with your queer friends in a group watching porn. And like you're absolutely right that like alternative communities, marginalized communities actually have more resources at their fingertips and like use them, but they also communicate way better than I think heterosexual couples in terms of like pleasure, sex, exploration. And there's so much societal shame cast on everybody. And I think with marginalized or fringe or alternative communities, there's this supporting one another and communicating and feeling safe to do so. And that's what that sounds like. That sounds like such a beautiful experience. And I wanted to mention, because in our previous call, you did mention them, the Youth Sexpert program, which you are on the board of. And I've reached out to Tara and I'm going to interview her as well next week.
Oh,
and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Because when you told me about them, it sparked a trigger, like it sparked in me what I experienced of like trying and being frustrated during high school and not getting the answers or resources, and then doing the research myself and sharing that with my friends. Like I was telling her, like, I wish I had that program. Like I would absolutely be a part of that program when I was that age, when I was 16, 17 years old. And I was doing that without the correct resources and like parental, advisory, as well as guidance from professionals. And that's what she's set out to build. And so do you want to speak a little bit about that and how you found them? And
yeah, I know Tara from other, I think she was working with a company I was like ambassadoring for. And so when she came up with this idea, she reached out to a whole bunch of people. We did like a huge call and she's like, who wants to be a part of it? And I was immediately a yes. because everything you mentioned, but the fact that whether you want it or not, your kids are talking about sex. Your kids are learning about sex. They're learning about sex from even if you can have all the parental locks on everything in your home, and they're going to go to school, and there's a kid who doesn't, and that kid is watching things and coming back and sharing things, and they have questions and they don't have resources as to where to get actual answers. They may be Googling, and we all know Google is full of a lot of right things and a lot of wrong things and a lot of middle of the way things. And so it's something I try to impress upon parents when I come across them, because I don't necessarily teach. I teach young adults, so like college age and up. But I have gone to high schools and done Q&A sessions, and these kids ask questions that I'm like, I could never come in here and make this my curriculum. And they're asking me like about fisting and foot fetishes and so many things that people are like, I don't want my kids to know that. And I'm like, they know. And they're confused, or they've got partial information, or they stumble upon porn, which is entertainment, not lessons. So I love that the Youth Expert program is trying to arm kids with knowledge with their parents' permission. You know, they're not just like, I mean, we would all love it if it could be a covert operation of teaching kids about sex ed and sending them off into the world, but this is with parents' permission. The parents get a chance to look over everything the kids are going to learn. They look over the curriculum and the outline. And really, it's just saying we're making informed people that can be planted within their little communities and bubbles to say, like, no, that's not right. Or here's some resources. Because there are some great resources like Scarletine, there's a ton of books. But you need somebody to be able to go here. And right now, the country we live in, our teachers aren't able to do that. I think this is super important in places like Florida, where there may be parents who can't move and are feeling very helpless. And so it's offering something to give them a chance to like give their kids a fighting chance as they move forward with their sexual health. Because it's all linked: mental health, sexual health.
Yep. Our physical health,
Yeah,
all of it.
everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there are statistics, I don't have them off the top of my head, but there are statistics of like young females who experience sexual trauma go to their friends before going to their mother, before going to the doctor, before going to anyone, female or male, like anyone in their families. They go to their peers first when those experiences happen. And so in this program, there's information there for trauma, what to
Right.
do. And it might not be like another child or a young adult has to handle the situation, but it's like, oh, we go here. Let's go to the hospital. Let's go to the emergency room. Let's go to this place. Let's call these people, whatever resources they need, versus like trying to, exactly to your point, like trying to find it on Google or be like, Alexa, what do I do in this moment? And it was from everything from that extreme to even just like, I have interviewed other sex educators who work specifically with like 6th grade to 12th grade. And, you know, to your point, like there are a lot of questions, whether it's kink, whether it's even just like, what does a penis do? Like, you know, some kids have no exposure to it and are like completely confused or have no information there. But then there's other kids who are very curious, who have been exposed to, have found porn, have found things at much younger ages. And between those two, like trying to communicate, whereas like if you have a child fully understanding what their peers are looking for and having some of the answers or pointing them in the right direction, I think it's an incredible program. And it's new. And I don't blame you for being like, absolute yes.
On board. I mean, it's been shown that when teens are informed about pleasure and it's not demonized, and we talk about how to give yourself pleasure, we talk about masturbation and things, the teen birth rate goes down. Like we're not having a lot of teen pregnancy because they understand how to take care of their hormonal urges. They have more of an understanding besides you're going to get pregnant or what that means. But also, and I think just it gives you more autonomy and more control, and it's easier to use your no, because a lot of this curriculum is talking about consent and boundaries and all these really great things. Even in my experience, like I didn't have penetrative sex until I was 18. And I was very explorative and sexual, but I was like, that's not, I'm good. I don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you give them enough information that pleasure isn't necessarily directly associated or affiliated or needed with penetration. And I love that. I didn't even realize that there was a whole component of self pleasure and masturbation. And that is so important because it does then delay certain choices that we make with sex and exploration, or exactly empowers the person to be actually, I don't want that for my body right now. I don't. Whereas when you have no clue and you're well, this is what I think everyone's doing. And this is what I see in porn. That's obviously what's going to happen.
And imagine the power of knowing what an orgasm is. and how you get one, and that it doesn't necessarily come from, it's probably not going to come through penetration, and knowing how your body works so early on, the hurdles these folks are going to jump, all of these red flags, all of these, because they're going to go, wait a minute, stuff we didn't have. I certainly
way less trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
Way less trial and error.
Yeah, less shame too. Just growing
Yeah.
up with a whole slew of things kind of out of the way because they got some education early on.
And so then, speaking of education, I'm a big believer in sex education being a lifelong journey. I'm sure you are as well. So who do you predominantly work with and educate? And what kind of questions or subject matter are they coming to you for?
I consider myself a gateway educator. So I tend to deal with a lot of newbies and people kind of in that median. They're not expert level, or they're not super versed. They're either very beginning, curious, or not curious, but something's happened where they're trying to figure out how to do something. So I'm there with all the little tidbits and facts and things that you would learn in an early education, setting if that existed for us. And then for the median folks, it's kind of giving them that extra push, or here's where you can go to the next level. Here's who you can read, books or places you can go. I'm very, what's the word? I like being that networking connection for folks, because I'm not the end all be all. I don't know everything. Also, my style doesn't work for everyone. And there's so many amazing educators out there who specialize in certain areas, or just people connect with in a different way. So I love being able to point people, oh, do you know this person? You follow their Instagram, or here they do these amazing classes. And I call it my Rolodex, but I have, if you're young, you don't know what a Rolodex is, but it used to be this little circular card file that you would keep on your desk with people's names and phone numbers. And you'd flip through it when you needed something, or you put people's business cards, and you would flip through it when you're oh, and I kind of think of that, my brain, as that. And I'm who can I link you up with? Who would be the best bet? So being a guide to helping people on their path.
That's amazing. Yeah, I pictured you an air traffic controller, or the old school operators with the phone. How can I connect you? And oh, you're interested in kink. This is the person for you.
And I do some, and I do, again, I love kind of getting in that groundwork, that baseline, that really good, here's the stuff you didn't think about, or what you're thinking. I love when people talk about kink, because they go, okay, kink, and they don't realize kink is this big, expansive umbrella of things. And they're well, what is this? And I'm yeah, but you can be into spanking, but not be into being a submissive or a dominant. But you might be into giving, might be a top or a bottom, and there's a difference. And there might not be a power exchange, and there's so many things, and people are what? So I love being that kind of little, here's a taste, here's some basic information, and then here's where, once you kind of know what you want to do, here's where you can go.
And so then my next question is, how does your identity and the intersectionality of your many identities inform how you educate people?
Oh, in a lot of different ways. I'm fat, Black, queer, I have all the things. And I also have privilege, I have light skin privilege. I walk through the world in a different way. So while I have a lot of marginalized identities, I don't always read as queer. I come across oftentimes as straight, because a lot of my partners are masculine. So I can read very straight. So I can walk into a room and often infiltrate and be in spaces where others can't. And so I'm very much the person who I will come into your talk and sit there and you think we're going to be cozy. And then I'm like, but what about this? I like to be the shit stirrer when it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I offer Kate Kinfield, a sex educator, and she coined the term beacon of permission. And early on, she told me that she's like, you're a beacon of permission. People see you and they go, if you're doing this, I can do this. And very much so being in a fat body and that I have partners and I'm loved and confident and, I wear the clothes that I want to wear and all of those things. I don't take for granted that somebody is seeing me doing those things, and it may help give them that push to like, I can be in this body and still have all these things, and I don't have to be look one way or be thin or chase an ideal in order to have these things. It's like one thing if you want whatever you want to do with your body, it's your body, but don't think that you have to do those things in order to deserve love, care, and being in loving relationships and respect and confidence or be on TV, all of those things. So I think that really informs me. Always I'm remembering that I'm not just doing this stuff for myself. I'm doing this for the people who are gonna see me and go, oh, I can do this. Whether it be people my age, older, or even young people. So that keeps me like moving along. And I try to like bring up issues. My friend Amber calls us palatable Black women because people think we are, like, oh, you're going to be fine with things. And then we're like, no, but I'll talk to you about it. And I'm not going to take crap. And I will get very in your face about stuff. But I try to use my privilege to sometimes be welcoming if I feel you are really, truly in it to learn something. Not if you're trying to be devil's advocate. We're not playing that. But for people who are really just, I didn't know that, or I'm unsure of how to handle this thing, I try to be that friend who people can reach out to and say like, hey, I'm not sure how this would land, or, is this bad? I'm not sure. Like where you might get eaten alive online. I tell people all the time, like people don't owe you niceness on the internet, but have a couple friends you can talk to and go, hey, would this be appropriation, or would this be not great? And I have that too, because because I'm a minority doesn't mean that I can't appropriate or do things that are inappropriate. And I have a large circle of people in my life from different backgrounds, which also informs how I teach, as I try to encourage people to open up their circles, have people with different viewpoints and come from different walks of life, because then you can have discussions with people who know you and care about you without going out in the world and trying to have that with people who don't know you and don't know that you mean well, or, are already dealing with whatever they're dealing with. And so they're going to take it out on you because they're upset and angry. And it might be valid, but it might be, it's not going to be helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you provide is safety, accessibility, advocacy, but also accountability. I just wrote, as you were speaking, these words were coming to me and I was like, you're not afraid to hold people accountable. It is difficult to navigate this world and understand where people are coming from and have empathy, or try to wanting to know, but then feeling scared or feeling like you might get shut down, or feeling curious and not wanting to offend, but then not saying anything at all. And I think there is a terrible thing sometimes happening where we're refusing to listen. And it's not everyone's responsibility to educate you, but it's not a terrible thing to inform someone, hey, that could be offensive. And to your point of like being an air traffic controller, of like, you might want to read these authors. You might want to look into this podcast or listen to this program. It might help inform where you're feeling uncomfortable or uncertain, or whatever it is that people are seeking from you, and having that type of community where it's safe. And then it also expands everyone's perception of things and understanding of things. I think that's really beautiful and incredible, Lola. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to kind of have those types of circles of friends and communities, and know that those channels can be open by just expressing like, hey, you can express these things and talk to me about this stuff. And I'm not responsible, nor are you responsible, for giving me the full breadth of education and understanding of my experience or your experience. But here is my understanding, or here is some information that can be helpful.
Or just
I think
awareness,
that's really,
like I didn't think of this, or I didn't realize this was happening in such a big way. Thank you for letting me know. Like I've had that happen with friends, like with trans issues. It's like I'm not trans. I'm not walking through my life experiencing that, and I see things. But then sometimes, when like all the laws were happening, I didn't at first realize how much was happening until a friend was like, "Did you not realize this?" And they sent me an article. I was like, "Thank you so much for this," because I didn't, and I started following all the people on Twitter that they were like, "Oh, these people talk about it often," and I'm like, "You don't need to educate me, but I thank you for giving me a way to educate myself."
yes.
Yeah, so I can keep supporting, because that's what's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's allyship.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Informing yourself and seeking it out. And sometimes we're not aware because it's not within our purview. It's not within our, like, this is my life. This is the things that I'm seeing. This is the algorithm telling me what I need to see.
Or you have your own marginalized identities that you're very immersed in all the stuff
that you're very
there. And
exactly. Yeah. And you're working through your own stuff. And so sometimes those things don't come into our view, but it's important to have our friends and our community share that with us so that we know and that we can support one another. I very much appreciate that. And I think it is really important, because I think it's hard when someone, when you're like, I didn't know. And then it doesn't stop there. You don't have to stop not knowing what you can start to do. And I think that's exactly it. Like, then find the accounts, there's so many very niche specific things for all of these categories of information, things that are happening. That's one of the beauties of technology right now, is there's so many ways that we can inform ourselves to then get the resources to educate ourselves on the experiences of others. Cause I think it's really hard. And like, I just read the other day that like we absorb within the first 20 minutes of our day what people used to absorb in a week. That's an incredible thing, but it's also horrifying and overwhelming. And so I think it's to kind of be aware of what's going on. And being aware doesn't mean you have to be well studied and know everything about these things happening here or this thing happening there, but like having an active awareness and openness to supporting and hearing of everyone's or not everyone's, it's really hard, but like a lot of what's going on. And then also looking and seeking ways that you can truly support. Let's take a quick break. Back in 2012, I made the bold decision to ditch traditional shampoo, and I've never looked back. How did I do it, you ask? With Hair Story New Wash. This product is not just a shampoo or conditioner, it's a unique all-in-one solution that gently cleanses your hair while maintaining its natural balance. No more harsh chemicals stripping away your hair's vitality. Hair Story New Wash uses a carefully crafted blend of essential oils, aloe vera, and fatty acids that cleanse and nourish your hair without any of the harmful stuff you find in traditional products. Here's a little secret. I used to work at Hair Story from 2013 to 2017, and even after that, I couldn't find anything that compares. This is a product I truly believe in, and that's why I'm excited to share it with you today. As a listener of our podcast, by using the link we provided in the episode notes, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase of Hair Story New Wash. Say goodbye to the shampoo bottle clutter and hello to healthier, more vibrant hair with Hair Story New Wash. Click the link, enjoy the discount, and give your hair the love it deserves. Now back to our episode. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your polyamorous experience?
I'm like, where do we start? So I was practicing some form of polyamory when I was in my teens. We didn't call it that. It just was kind of how we were connecting. And I remember I never wanted to get married. Like, that was never a thing. I wasn't writing people's last names after I'm like, I want to keep my name. But what I did want very solidly, I remember saying I want to live in a house with like my boyfriend and my girlfriend, and I just want us to all live together. And it's like, that's what I want. That was the life. And then I met the person that is now my ex-husband. And that changed because I fell deeply in love. And because I didn't know these were valid, real life choices you could make, I just thought I was slutty and hadn't found the right person, and that I had found the right person, and here we go. And 5 years into that, it was not. I was still very much in love, but I felt very incomplete and not whole. And I had a whole breakdown, what we were calling then the quarter life crisis. And it was real because I just felt like I wasn't who I was supposed to be. Like that got interrupted. And, move forward through that. And we end up opening up our marriage. It's time I started exploring kink. And when I say that, it wasn't like I was going to clubs. I was on Twitter following all the kink accounts. I had already been reading a lot of smut, but I was reading people's blogs because so many people were blogging about their kinky experiences and their 24/7 dom-sub relationships. There was a lot of ways to absorb that information that didn't exist before. My first doms were online. So I was kind of experiencing getting more of that connecting, being married with one person, but connecting to others. And then we moved through all the stages of non-monogamy, of the emotional, sharing. And then I started dating. We started swinging, and we didn't fully open up until probably like the seventh year in. We opened up our marriage, and I was so excited, but that excitement really overshadowed, I think, properly doing it. Also, I don't know where I would have gotten any of that. Like, I feel like I was getting some information. There were some books around. I didn't really have a grasp fully on all the resources then. Like, everybody was like, read Sex at Dawn. Sex at Dawn is a great book. It is not a book on how to like be in your relationships and how to open them up properly and move through it in a way that will make it a sustainable relationship. So we kind of fumbled through it, but I learned a lot in it, and I don't regret it. In the end, I am polyamorous as part of my orientation. I don't know how to be monogamous. It didn't work out for me being monogamous. It's not how my brain works. I need that connection with other people, multiple people. That's just how I gravitate towards people and love people. My ex was polyamorous by, happenstance, and we ended up getting divorced. And the nightmare scenario that everybody's like, what if they leave you for their other partner? That's what he did. And she left her husband, but because they weren't polyamorous, they wanted to be monogamous with each other. And that can happen when you're in a monogamous, people get left all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
They get left out behind all the time. But as that relationship was collapsing in on itself, I met my partner, my long distance partner of now 6 years. And I was falling in love with him, fighting it because he was long distance and because all this stuff was happening in my life. And I'm like, I don't know if I can be emotionally available. I don't know if I want to be. I marvel at the feeling in polyamory where you can be both heartbroken and deeply falling in love at the same time. It is the most wonderful and horrible feeling to experience. It's like a tornado, hurricane, earthquake happening in your body. And that's what was happening. And I ended up, this person, it kind of helped us be closer because he stuck around, because I was going through my things and not connecting with him as deeply as maybe he wanted, but he understood. And I think me realizing like, oh, you're not just here for a little while. You're like trying to build something, endeared him to me. And it helped me also slow down. It helps that he's a sex therapist. And we do.
Oh, that is very helpful.
Yeah, it's very well, and it's not that he therapizes me, but also that he understands emotions and he understands things that are going on and communication. And I got a second chance to build properly a good foundation with him and my metamor. She's one of my best friends, and we were building our own separate relationship because I had a lot of baggage from my marriage and my poly family relationship that had imploded. Like I didn't just lose a husband. I lost my poly family. I lost my
your network.
My network. Mm-hmm. I lost the kids that I had watched grow up.
Oh.
I wasn't allowed to talk to them anymore. And so I lost a lot when that marriage ended. And here I was with this new family, and I was very afraid to get close to them. I was very afraid to get close to their kid. I can't take losing kids again. Like, it's heartbreaking. You become a part of their lives, and then suddenly they're gone. And I think my trepidation, but his patience and her patience, it helped us move into things. And the distance, I think, really helped it not be this crazy whirlwind of NRE and hurt and pain from my divorce mixing together and baggage. We got to go through those things piecemeal. And when stuff came up, it worked out really well of like, I hadn't been in relationships with people who were open to talking. The communication. And he would remind me like, this is not what you went through. I know you feel the edges of this might feel like that's what's happening, but the inside is not what's happening. And being with somebody who, instead of being mad at me for being where I was, or, accusatory or angry, it really helped somebody understanding that it helped me diffuse my own stuff. And I was able to step back and breathe and look at things and talk and say, hey, this is how this is reading to me, but I understand that that's not what's happening, but I need you to tell me that. And it's been one of the most healing relationships I've ever been in. And it's really helped me figure out what I want. Like I am very much solo poly. I don't want to get married again. I don't want to be, I like living on my own. I like being my own primary. And I do love having my partner. I love my partner deeply. I like him to be where he is. I like us to come together, and then I get my space. And I think that was partly why my marriage didn't, because, you're with somebody all the time. They don't go away when you get married.
No.
You don't get private space. You got to sleep in the same bed. It's like, ew, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And then it's also helped me be more open to other people. So I also have a lover in Portland, and understanding like, people go, why is he your lover and not your partner? I'm like, well, we love each other, but we have a different relationship, and it's more than a comment. But like, we don't plot to see each other. We will, it might happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't, and we contact each other. I get a lot of memes. He's a meme sender.
It's a love language.
Yeah,
it is a love language.
Happy birthday, happy holiday. When something goes wrong, we'll connect sometimes. But he's not an all the time person. He's in my circle of people I tell things, but he's not the first person I call. He's in the phone tree, but he's not on the top of the list. Right. And I think that it's important to be able to say, but I still love this person and they mean so much to me. But you're not always number one on somebody's, list of who they need. And honestly, sometimes it's like my sister gets the call before anybody. So, that's been so helpful for my own self, and understanding how hearts work in love and relationships and all those things. And like you said earlier, we're always learning. I am always learning and picking up more and learning more about myself and how to navigate and what I'm looking for. Even here, like I'm not dating anybody in New York. Well, I would like to be, but dating is trash. And I say that lovingly, even though I am deep in it.
I follow you. I follow you on Instagram, and I see some of your IG story shares, and it is trash. Like it's
it
trash.
Is. And you know what though? People go, then why are you doing it? I'm like, well, because this is the way of the world. I do go outside. People don't talk to me. Like I don't get approached when and also though, I think, do I want to be approached when I'm by myself in a bar reading? Not really. I don't know if unless we were easing into conversation. I don't want to be hit on. And when I'm with my friends, I'm with my friends. And I do like social. If we're going there to be social and meet people, I love those types of things. Those don't happen enough. I want more of that. But yeah, you see the things I post. You have to have an amusement about it, because you have to realize how ridiculous it is. You have to realize how absurd people can be in order to keep doing the thing. And I think you find, like, I started chatting with somebody last night, and the rule of thumb is if I'm leaving town, somebody really interesting starts talking to me that I want to talk to at a time. And I was like, hey, I knew this was going to happen because I'm leaving town for like 4 days. So I'll see when we get back.
That's very funny. That's a very common thing. I hear a lot of my friends talk about that, of like, and I'm leaving and we're going on a business trip and I'm doing this.
Right,
and,
yeah.
And I'm going away for 3 weeks to Europe and I just had a really great date. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's timing's funny.
I once had a great date and left for like a month.
Oh, wow.
We talked, but it was just like the whole time I was gone, but it was such this like, seriously?
Yeah. What is that? Yeah. Lola, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think for a lot of people, you gave a very good description of the process of moving from a monogamous relationship to a polyamorous one. I myself have been in a monogamous relationship and opened it up, and to the same experience of like that relationship not working out, but also going through the process of grieving that even a year after the fact, because I moved out of the apartment that I shared with this person, but I was also falling in love with somebody else, having a really supportive partner in that way, of the same way of like allowing me to be vulnerable, allowing me to cry and express like I miss this other person, because they too had been through a big relationship, a very long-term relationship that they went through a breakup. And so to experience support from somebody rather than like jealousy or like questioning or frustration because you're a human. And so when you said that about like grieving a relationship, grieving a divorce, grieving that period of your life, grieving who you were in that relationship, that network, same thing for me of like, I lost children. I lost people I've known for a decade. I've lost so many people I love and I will always love and always be available for. But there's no longer an ability to have that same connection, that same familial dynamic. So it wasn't family, but it was family to me. And to experience that, but then have a partner who sees that, allows me to be vulnerable in that space, allows me to love them the ways that I can. When you were speaking to that, like I totally relate to that. And I think people don't understand that. And I think people have a hard time with doing that thing of like, well, I could have told you that wasn't going to work out, when it's like most monogamous relationships don't work out.
No.
If we look at the divorce rates.
Very
So
high.
to then say that it doesn't work out. But what I can say absolutely in agreement with you is that like it was a human experience that I don't even know how to describe, but the amount of healing, the amount of growth, the amount of being able to express myself fully and feel very much seen and heard and validated throughout the experience is incredible. And so it doesn't matter whether like you stay with your partner currently or I stay with my partner currently. It was just that period of time I have such a reverence for, of like, wow, this is so rare to be able to go through heartbreak and also go through like heart swelling emotions, like as if I was a teenager at the same time, and be able to express that both to the person I was, breaking up with, as well as to this new person, and feel completely validated in both of those experiences. It's kind of incredible. And I think it's something that people don't see when they hear of like monogamous, polyamorous breakups. Breakups are hard regardless of all of the circumstances involved. And what I appreciate is the ability to heal and be supported through that healing process. And, there's so many people out there who are listening and who have experienced even that of like a loss of a partner through death. And I've witnessed and seen like programs and things where like the other person doesn't know how to support their partner who is grieving. Grief is a lifelong experience. It doesn't go away. And so it's the same with heartbreak. And it's the same with, whether the person's, no longer on this earth or the person's still walking on this planet. We have moments. It doesn't matter how much you love the new people in your life, the new families in your life. I have moments constantly where I see something and think of the person I was with, or maybe a familial person in that family unit or in that network of people, the social network that I had through this person. And I just think of them, and then I'm like, my heart is broken all over again. Like it just feels,
All the time, Facebook.
all the time. Yeah, it's a damn Facebook with those memories. It's a constant, and we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about those transition periods, those growth periods, those healing periods, and we don't allow each other. I feel so grateful to have the partners, the ex-partners who I can be vulnerable with and can fully express like how I'm feeling in that moment, and the same for them, and not take it personal, not take it like it makes me lesser because this person's missing their ex, or it makes them lesser because I'm missing this person, or I feel, disoriented in a moment, or, whatever it is that's happening. I think it's so important to find people in your life who allow you to be that way, be yourself fully.
Yeah. And correct some of your, on the other side of things, I also, like what my toxic behaviors were, whether, and not say like he was making me, but you play off of each other. And when you don't have a toolbox, or you have a half of a toolbox and they have no toolbox and they're refusing
Mm-hmm.
to get any tools, and there's a whole bunch, And there's toxic things you pick up, and being in a fresh relationship where somebody is all the things that you said, mentioned, and offering all of that, it's helped me reflect on like, oh, I can't use my defenses that I was using with this person because I wasn't getting what I needed. I'm getting what I need, and I need to like retrain myself. But also being with somebody who I can say, hey, when I'm mad at you, I don't know how to love you. Like I don't get that lovey feeling goes away from me. And I don't want to talk to you, and I want to ignore you. I don't want to send you emojis and anything that I want to just end everything in a period and no exclamation point. And I want to send you thumbs up instead of saying, because I'm feeling a kind of way, and having him know that, like, I know you're upset because you are doing that, but also realizing like, I don't want to do that because I'm not going to be mad at you in a little while. Like we're going to talk through it or whatever's going to happen. And I'm going to feel bad that I did this and I've done that. And so that's already hurt you. And that's helped me a lot. So when I'm like, I was feeling very disconnected last night and it was his birthday. And I know I was feeling bad because like I've been scattered and I did not send a card this year. Like I normally would send a card, and I had no idea what to get him. And I'm like, I'm such a bad girlfriend. I have no idea what to get you. And, I don't just buy things to buy things. He's like, no, I know. And when you find a thing, it'll be perfect. And I'm like, okay, then I love you. But then we were supposed to have our online date, and he was like, hey, some friends asked me to go out, but if you can't reschedule. And I was like, no, you should go out, because I felt bad also that he was not really doing anything on his actual birthday. But because I've been feeling disconnected, I was like mad. And I'm like, but why are you mad? You told him. I was like at work talking myself through it, like, you told him to go. You can't. And I was starting to send him something, and I had no, and I erased it. I was like, no, put that exclamation point, because you're doing this because you feel disconnected, but also he is trying. So tonight I was going to go do something else, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to stay home so we can talk, because that's important. And clearly I need that, because I got very upset after telling him to go do the thing.
Yeah.
He's going to hear this and go, you were mad. Like, and not mad at you, but just mad that I'm not, it was like, I'm mad at the world that I can't just teleport and be there for your birthday and hug you and hang out with you and take you to dinner and then teleport, because they live in California. So I can't just like be there and then come home, and that everything we do, I have to kind of get that package out or make it around when we're going to see each other. And that's upsetting. That's one of the things that is upsetting about long distance. And it's like, I'm not mad at you, and I shouldn't take it out on you. Old me would have never learned that. Old me is somewhere going, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that's incredible of the introspection. So feeling irritable and then acting on it is like what we're conditioned to do. It's how we kind of survive in a lot of ways. So we react to all these things, but to find a partner to be able to work through these things and be like, actually, and so then to come to the realization like, oh, this is not about him. This is about logistics and long distance and frustrations that I'm feeling around this, versus this is not about you. This is not about me. And no longer needing to play the victim of the life we're choosing.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
it's kind of incredible.
yeah.
It's liberating.
It is.
And I also am like in somewhat of or I call it short long distance, and embarking on a long distance relationship. And one of the things that's beautiful about it is the space sometimes, because of time zone and because of scheduling, that you are forced to have these perimeters, these boundaries, then allow you to sit with yourself and go through all of the motions, go through the things that no longer would serve you. Whereas like when you're with your partner in the same room in the apartment and like lashing out or reacting to something, versus like, oh, I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to percolate at work about it. I'm going to go get a coffee. I'm going to type this text message up and be like, actually, this isn't the person I want to be in any of this. Like this energetic version of myself, this verbal, like all of the things that are being expressed right now is not who I am and not who I want to be, and no longer serving me. At one point, it might have served you at some point in a relationship dynamic, whether it's parental and child, whether it's, needing attention or wanting to be able to express love how you feel you should. and being able to find that space. And I think that's one of the things that's really beautiful about long distance is that it forces certain boundaries on a relationship that wouldn't normally happen, that actually create the space for growth.
It does. And also it's not going to be perfect. And like we had a visit, we had a lovely time. He was here for my birthday and we had a great time, but I was feeling disconnected because I've been crazy. Things have been busy for me in a lot of ways. And we had so many plans because it was my birthday and there are people here he knows. So we were like trying to see people and do things. And we had these pockets of joy, but there was a lot of irritability. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't address before he got here. Like, I do not like sleeping with people. Other people, I have a full-size bed. 2 people is not, no. We can't do that. And we were doing it, and I knew I should just set up the extra bed for him. And that works because we get cuddle time, alone time. I fall asleep, and then I'm not uncomfortable. And my body hurt because I'm sharing the small bed. I'm irritable. I'm hot. I'm going through like perimenopause. So like I was having hot flashes and he feels like lava. And it was this thing. And when he went home, I said, I had a really great time with you, but I'm sorry I wasn't nicer to you. And he goes, no, I know. It was just a lot happening and your body's going through stuff. And having somebody go like, yeah, you weren't, but I love you. And I also understand, it helped a lot. And then also it's like, next time I'm going to do these things because this messed up everything for me in a way because I was trying to be like the good girlfriend and let him sleep with me instead of like, here's your bed.
Yeah. Here's the thing that actually at the end of the day will make both of us happy.
Yes.
But instead like trying to fulfill something that like you didn't even actually want.
No.
But you're just like, okay, this is what we have to do. It also, I would agree with that with like long distance is sometimes you try to cram everything in and don't actually give yourself the space or be like, oh, we always have to be around each other. We always have to do these things together. We have to check these boxes. And then you're like, I'm exhausted and I never want to see you again. But like, it's get out.
I want you to go home. And the moment you're on the plane, I'm crying because
right.
Yeah.
But it's so intense.
Yes.
And then it's like, it's sometimes reminding yourself like, oh, we don't have to do all those things. We don't have to have all of the sex like the first second we see each other. You don't have to do everything within like that weekend or that week or that day, whatever it is, that whatever that cadence is that you're seeing one another. It doesn't all have to be jam packed because then you're like, it'll happen again. We can find some space or it happens that way that you're like, oh, well, I want to get every ounce and every second with you. And it's like, that actually doesn't have to happen. You don't have to. And I also think, speaking of long distance, of like, you don't have to entertain the person the whole time. So you're like being a good girlfriend. It's your birthday, but he's there for you. So you have to like entertain and make sure that he feels good or he's enjoying himself or he's getting the experience, especially if someone doesn't come to New York City or come to wherever you are and like trying to cram it all in. And it's like, you can actually like just take a minute and be like, oh, actually, I just want to go see my girlfriends.
Right.
I just want to go for this and I'm going to go do my own thing. Let me go get my hair done. Like you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people in long distance relationships tend to cram everything in and then feel a pressure and then feel bad. But it's like, we're still human. We're still experiencing the nature of time and space. And it's sometimes can get a little congested or feel a little like lava when you're laying next to someone you love.
I know. And I forgot that I totally spaced that we are going on a cruise in December. So in my brain, I was like, I don't know, I'm not going to see you because I'm not coming for any of the holidays and you're not coming here. Which I'm fine with. And I asked for, I was like, my wallet needs a rest. This is what I want to do. And he's like, oh, I understand. But then my brain was like, you're not going to see him until next year. And as we were leaving, he goes, I'm going to see you in December. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're going on a trip. and that's going to be our celebration for our anniversary. And we're together for our anniversary, our 6th. So we're going on a cruise that we planned forever ago, which is why I forgot. It's paid for and everything. And I was like, oh,
yay.
I can go live with you, like on a boat, sitting on chairs in the sun.
Relaxing in the sun during December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which would have made things, I think, a little easier because I would have felt less I need to make every moment count.
Right. Yeah, that pressure is it's not serving anybody. It kind of strangles sleep, right? Because that's the energy. You're like,
Yes.
I need it to work out. I need everything to be great. And you're like suffocating yourself.
Yes. Not him, but me.
Not him.
And
Yeah.
he would
but
be
you,
fine.
yeah.
And that's the other part too, is the lesson I'm still learning is I don't have to take care of him the way I took care of my ex. I don't have to be very much the cruise director in my married life, and was very much like aware of his emotional state and trying to navigate it because he didn't communicate. This is not the person I am with. And he takes care of himself and is very well good at going, oh, you're tight. Okay, we can recalibrate. And I have to keep reminding myself that I don't have to do all of these things. And that if he is upset, he will tell me he's upset.
Yes. You're with an emotionally intelligent adult who can function and take care of themselves. And it's hard when you're in a previous relationship that's like that, or, you know, come from a dynamic childhood where there was codependency and having to serve that role of being like the hyper aware, the hyper emotional, the cruise director, like you said, like the person doing all the plans and managing everything, to then have a partner who is fully functioning emotional adult who communicate and understands and isn't expecting you to kind of carry the emotional baggage for both of you. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. I just got to remember that.
Yep. Note to self, reminder that, well, because it's like, it's in our build as humans that like habitual patterns keep coming up and like testing it. What's really great is that when that comes up and then you're like, no, like that's not me, or that's not going to serve me, or that's not, I don't have to do that. And then you're like, wow, okay. And it's validating. It's proof that like we can change, we can grow, we can evolve. And
which is so just, I talk about often the time after when I moved out, because I had to live with my ex for a year. I had to live in the same house.
The transition. Yes. Okay.
And then moving and to this apartment and still feeling like both liberated and excited at my new life, but terrified and not knowing what was going to happen to me. Because when you're married, it's kind of laid out. You're going to be with this person and whatever that looks like, you know, even though you might not have it fully mapped out. Being single again suddenly, I don't have an emergency contact. And, you know, like all of that.
My gosh, yes.
You. And I just remember laying in bed and being terrified. And I got this feeling that came over me that was just, you know, my brain just went, you know, every time you do this, it works out. Because you've laid, the universe is always at work, and you've laid the groundwork for the things that you were receiving in life. And you are freaking out because the path you thought, the plan you made didn't work. The plan you made wasn't the plan. And like, it was this profound feeling of peace that came over me of like, I've done the work, I'm doing the work. I don't have to grip so hard on reality, because whatever's belongs to me is going to come to me. And that I've done a lot of in my life and what I deserve. And it's not going to look like what I want it to look like, but I end up getting what I want, and sometimes more or better in a different way when I just let it flow and stop trying to control everything. And that changed everything for me. And I have no idea where because I've little woo, but never like that deeply woo. But I think I was just I needed something, and it was just, but it was very true. It was like, oh, even being in this apartment was not a thing I planned, and it just happened because I became friends through cat sitting because I needed something to do, and we became really good friends. And then the apartment opened up, and you know, it was all this stuff. It's like you know, what you put out comes back to you. And yeah, so all of these learning, it's like I get that dopamine high, and that it's good because it reminds me like, no, yeah, these are good things. These are good. You have to let go some of your stuff.
Yeah. Surrender.
Yeah. Which is hard, but
yes.
Yeah. And not care and not steer the ship, but also like you can't fight the current.
Trust.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a trusting and moving with it. So you're not imagining like you're in a river. You're not standing still trying to like beat the force of the flow. You're not trying to swim against it. and being like ignoring it completely. What you're doing is moving with momentum, but following a path that's like, it's available to you.
Yep. And you're probably going to end up where you wanted to end up. Just
exactly.
not the way you thought you needed to go.
Right.
When you're fighting, you're not really moving forward. So it's...
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of woo.
Yeah.
It's always going to come for you. It's always going to come for you. Like, you just got to listen to it. I believe in that. Like, I too don't go full woo, but I'm here for some of the woo, because it absolutely is profound and has changed my life when I trust and let go of limiting beliefs and let go of things that I thought should have happened. When I remove the word should from my vocabulary, when I've removed the words I've been busy, it's opened up so much space and time for me. And so I think that everyone, like, that's such a beautiful space to work from, is like, stop thinking that should happen and stop thinking that time is finite and time is limited. Time is a concept we've created and it's a thing, and like allowing things to come to you in their own time, in your own space, when it's ready for you. And thinking about that, like thinking about your space in your life right now, a decade ago, before you were married, you wouldn't, like, that wouldn't have been the right time or space for you to be in. Yeah.
No, I think, have you seen the movie Dogma?
No,
Okay.
I have not.
So
actually.
Kevin Smith, and it's about like two angels. Anyway, there's...
Oh, I've seen it in the 90s. I guess when you
Chris Rock plays a prophet. He falls from the sky. He gives this speech at one point, and it stuck with me because he says, the problem with people is that they hold on to their beliefs instead of just having ideas. Beliefs are hard to change. Ideas are always forming and changing and growing. And that has always, from the moment I heard that, I was like, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because when you believe, you get defensive when it starts getting proven wrong, or it's not exactly how you thought it to be. And when you have an idea about something, you're like, oh, well, I guess the way I was thinking about it can shift, and I now know more about a thing or how I perceive something. And so, I can change my thinking around it. And that's very much been like the bedrock to how I move through the world, is to stop, like, I don't believe everything. I have ideas about things.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That actually makes a lot, like, if you had a belief that monogamy was for you, you wouldn't be where you're at right now.
I would be fighting that current.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Truly. Lola, thank you so much. It's been an honor to chat to you. It's been lovely and warm. And I feel like exactly that, you make the conversation so accessible and comfortable. And I appreciate you sharing all of your insight, your wisdom. How do people find you?
You can find me these days. We're on my Instagram, at Dirty Lola. I'm on Threads now, finally, at Dirty Lola. I'm slowly letting go of Twitter. That's also Dirty Lola, but I don't really post there as much. And my website is dirtylola.co, where the plan is for next year to actually start posting things in the blog and, actually telling people what I'm doing, and have some other plans for it. So just keep your eye out.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Special thanks to all of our guests. Head South is hosted by Kat Meyer, produced by Isis Barlow, edited by Megan Hook, with music by Lily Rezi Rothman, graphics by Ella Chodos Irvine, cover art by Gina Ship Casey, and intro by Murph Meyer.
If you're looking for